At $200, a Super Nintendo setup costs twice as much as the old system. For the money, the company promises better pictures, sound, and adventure. Now you're playing with power, superpower. You're the king, I tell you! The king!
Only for Super NES.
Only on Super NES.
You're listening to the SNES podcast with your host, Soul Blazer.
Hello, folks. This is the Super NES podcast, episode number 248. I am Greg, joined always by Joe.
Hello.
And once again to reduce our end of the year stress and loads and whatever, we're covering another sports game today. Don't worry, this is the last sports game of the series. So if you're not a sports game fan, I apologize. This is the last one. So we are covering this time a volleyball game. One of only a few volleyball games to the system. There actually wasn't a lot. There actually was not a lot of volleyball games to Super NES actually. So we're looking at a game called Dig and Spike Volleyball, which is a kind of a fitting name. Which came out to Super NES in November 1992 in Japan, and December 1993 like in the US. So. Anyway, so Joe, I know you've not played this volleyball game before. Have you played any volleyball games before?
So the only volleyball game I have experience with was the first Dead or Alive volleyball game that came out for the original Xbox. And it's still one that I occasionally go back to today because it's a fun game. But yeah, volleyball's not really my thing.
Yeah, I actually enjoy volleyball a lot. I don't think I've ever said this before on the podcast, but I played volleyball quite a bit when I was in high school and whatever. So, indoor volleyball, mind you.
Yeah.
I have done beach volleyball in the past with events or whatever, but indoor volleyball that's where I played, and I agree with you. I know that the DOA Extreme Beach Volleyball games get a lot of attention because they do use the DOA engine, and therefore they are they do focus a lot, and therefore those games do focus a lot like on jiggle physics and TOA and TNA stuff, that kind of stuff.
Right.
But from somebody who played volleyball, and for somebody who's played and for somebody who's played volleyball games over the years, the physics in the actual volleyball game itself in those games is extremely solid because the physics are good. The games emulate the whole pass set spike routine that volleyball does very accurately. The camera angles are good. The camera angles are great. The speed is fast paced. And spoiler, a lot of those things are missing out of this game, but
right.
we will get into it. Yeah, it's a shame the third game never came out here in the West. The third game in the series was Japan only because the games got so much backlash. Here in North America, when they came out. But as a side note, though, I do think that the original DOA Extreme Beach Volleyball commercial is probably one of the funniest commercials I've ever seen for video game. Period. But
yeah.
I'm not sure you remember that one, Joe, but it's pretty hilarious.
Yes, I do.
But anyway, yeah. So my other favorite volleyball games, the old big games besides that one, are two older titles. There's a very late television game called Spiker, which came out for the system way in the years, like 1989. I think it came out. That, considering the age of systems, is a very competent, solid volleyball game. And also, Kings of the Beach by Konami for the NES was also a solid beach volleyball game because it's a Konami game. Every Konami NES game is pretty solid.
Right.
But that was actually a port of an arcade game originally, which I did not find out until many, many years later. But that's also a game I played a lot growing up. So, and nowadays there are still volleyball games being made, but they're more like, I don't think any major volleyball game has come out since the Extreme Beach Volleyball games. for a console. If there was one that came out in the West, I missed it. I know there's plenty of indie volleyball games that you can find for the Switch and Steam and whatever, but I'm not aware of any other major Western released volleyball games, unfortunately. But volleyball is one of those things that has not changed over the years. So really the only change. Really the only major thing I'd say that has changed in beach volleyball over the last 10 years is that women are women in professional teams are no longer required to wear those skin tight revealing uniforms that they were forced to use in the past. So which this game actually emulates to a degree. We'll get into it, but. Volleyball is a simple game. The rules haven't changed much recently. So, a volleyball game of this generation or older is still very competently and still fun to play today. If you don't mind, the controls or graphics or any other things that may interfere with your enjoyment of older games. But anyway.
So I just wanted to comment that the most recent volleyball game, and this is outside of Switch Sports or any of the Mario summer games, was Spike Volleyball, which came out in 2019 for Xbox One, PS4, and Windows. So,
I actually missed that game altogether, huh? Okay, all right.
Yeah, but that was literally the last most recent modern that has come out.
It's probably a small release, I'm sure, because
I never heard of it.
Yeah, so but yeah, for sure. So this volleyball game, like I said, I know for these. So I should have checked. I don't know how many I'm not sure how many volleyball games came out with Super NES. Period. I know there was the earlier Nintendo V-Spike Volleyball game. That was an early Super NES release, which Nintendo published, which is a pretty good volleyball game, in and of itself. But that game and this game are the only volleyball games I'm aware of that came out in the West, at least as far as volleyball theme. There may be others. Like I said, I meant to check. I've been busy getting ready for a trip to Japan, so my free time's been limited. But
I have the answer for you. So. It looks like there was two others. There's Multiplay Volleyball, which was released in 94.
Never heard of that one. Okay.
Yeah. And then I'm showing Inazuma Cerveda Super Beach Volleyball, and that was in 95.
Did I get a Western release?
That's a good question. Probably not.
Okay.
Just because it's in a Inazuma game.
Yeah. I seen that. Yeah, I seen the first game in your list that you mentioned did get a Western release, but anyway, speaking about Japan, this is also another game that got renamed for its Western release. I don't know why they renamed this game, because I thought the Japanese name of this game was fine. In Japan, the game's called Volleyball Twin. So the twin part of it kind of makes sense because there are two very different game modes in this game, which we'll talk about in a moment. I mean, Deacon Spike Volleyball works fine for a name because it is appropriate. You're digging the volleyball out to spike it over. So the name's fine. I'm just not sure why they felt the need to. I felt the need to rename it, but they did. So anyway, the game has good developers. The game was developed by Tosei, who we've talked about before. We've talked about before in this podcast, and you develop many, many good games. So there definitely is some pedigree developing this game. It was published in Japan by a company called Tonkin House. In North America, it was published by Hudson Soft, another company we've talked about before in the past. Hudson Soft, of course, is best known for the Bomberman series. Yeah. Probably like one of the things, which is still going strong, by the way. There was new bomber. It seems like every year or so that the new Bomberman game gets released.
Yep.
So we will have to cover Bomberman game at some point. I know of at least two, maybe more Super NES Bomberman games. So, anyway, so I don't know what took this game so long to come out in North America because being a sports game, there's not much text to translate. But like I said, it was over a year. It was over a year later before this game finally got a North American release. So never got released in Europe. Probably because it's a smaller market. I know volleyball is played some in Europe, but it probably does not have the same kind of appeal that it does in Japan and North America. So I can see that happening. Plus, like I said before, many games did not get ported over in Europe back in those days. So we may rage. So we may rage about the downsides about like distribution of games online and whatnot, but
right.
but it is easier and cheaper for companies to release a game worldwide in that format than in the old days when you actually like spend a lot of money to print carts or burn CDs or whatever. So it definitely is a lot easier to do an online release of a game worldwide now than it used to be. It used to be 20-30 years ago. So that is. That is like one benefit of this. But anyway, as I said before, this is a volleyball game, and as alluded to, there are two different modes of this game. The game actually is surprisingly deep for its options, which is one of the kudos and one of the high points of this game, which I want to call out for sure because we are going to be critical about this game in our coverage of it very shortly coming up. But so I want to make sure I'm giving praise where praise is due, and praise is definitely due to the very rich, robust options this game has. Probably one of the most rich, robust volleyball games of this time period, as a matter of fact, because you actually have two different modes of playing. You have men's volleyball teams played indoors, and women volleyball teams played outdoors on the beach. So, and there are enough differences between them that there is some the game does encourage you to play both because fundamentally. On the surface, there may not be that much difference. However, as I said before, for somebody who's played volleyball in the past, it's kind of like with, like a tennis. It's like a harder court will have the ball, bounce faster, be served faster, everything sped up faster, like a faster indoor because the ball has a harder surface to work off of. And as a result, the physics are a bit different compared to like outdoors beach volleyball. Like the sand's soft, it absorbs a lot of the shock of the shock of the ball hitting, the shock hitting like whatever. Players can also feel more free to lay themselves out. To get or save balls on the sand compared to inside because you don't want to do that inside unless you seriously hurt yourself. But at least for diving out to save a ball on the sand, chances are you're going to be okay. I don't know if you've ever seen Olympics volleyball, Joe, but you probably know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but yeah, I know I've seen, there's enough videos that go around social media that I have seen how some of these people throw themselves onto the floor to save the ball and whatever else. So yeah. It would hurt.
It's definitely a lot easier to do outdoors beach volleyball. That's one of the benefits of playing it out there. So, but anyway, so the fact most volleyball games are either one or the other. The fact this game actually has like both of them present in this game is a pretty nice, it's a nice option. Something I wasn't expecting to see coming into this. So, the options are pretty similar between the two games. In both indoors and outdoors, you have the options for one player versus a computer, one player versus two player. The indoor volleyball has a training mode, and you also have a World Cup that you can go through, which basically what it sounds like. There's a bunch of matches where you pick a team and you're playing against other teams. The indoor teams are 8 teams that the teams are actually based upon the strengths and weaknesses and the overall likenesses of flyweight volleyball teams that played the 1992 Summer Olympics. So there's no players or stats or anything, but they at least mimic the overall strengths and weaknesses and stat values internally and whatever of those teams. So that's a nice touch. The teams you pick from are Algeria, Brazil, Cuba, Italy, Japan, the Netherlands, the unified team, which basically means like Russia, plus the U.S. So you do have those options to play from, and you just play through a bunch of matches to try to see try to win the World Cup. So. And then on the women's beach volleyball side, besides one player versus computer and one player versus two player, you also have, and this is pretty cool, a one player versus two player versus computer. So it's a cooperative mode where it's like where two human players are playing on the same team, working together to beat the computer team, which is often not many sports games have. So again, a pretty nice option to have here. So, and then they also have, besides the World Cup, they have what's called opens, which are basically like you can pick from 4 different open matches to basically just go through 3 rounds and see if you can win the whole thing. You have the American, Brazilian, Italian, Japanese, and I don't know why the game does this, but one interesting thing about this is that the game has a battery feature. Thank God it has a battery feature because if Chippy's password is like wouldn't have been fun. If you play the American Open first, you go to the credits. So that's it. Yeah. However, you can play the other tournaments first. Once you win, you go back to the tournament. If you win, you go back to the team select screen where your players maxed out. And you can then use those maxed out players to go play their tournaments to make them easier for you. So, like I said, so the American Open is kind of going to be the final one to do in the chain. If you're going down like all the all the open tournaments. So, and so there's actually quite a lot here. The long plays this game I found online. If you do all those things like trainings, matches, cups, whatever, for both sides, there's about 6 to 7 hours of gameplay here that you just play straight through. So there definitely is some pretty robust and deep game options as far as what the game offers to you. Yeah. So. All that's for the positive. I've been very positive so far about this because I was very impressed by, the deepness of the game, the options given to you, the different modes available to you, whatever. So, but now, unfortunately, we have to get more critical. So, and Joe, why don't you start us off with this because I know you have some things to say about this.
yeah, it's about to get negative, so let's hand it off to Joe. Well, so I just want to touch on the positives because it is pretty cool that you get to kind of use like the Olympic teams. I do like that they give you the option of indoor and outdoor. I also really like that they have a training mode because, spoiler, you need to play training mode. Mastering these moves, the blocks, the serves, all that is crucial in this game, especially if you're going to play the American Cup. And then, of course, the save feature is a big thumbs up. That being said, the gameplay can be hard to get used to. You don't have much time to react. Like when the ball is spiked back over the net, I watched it because I thought it was me. I thought I was a bad player, but then I watched a video on YouTube and a guy basically breaks down the game, and it's like you literally have 0.1/5 of a second to react to the ball coming back over the net. And so it's like you have to be thinking 2-3 moves ahead, which is why I say training mode is a plus because you need to have that practice and be able to do that. The other thing is, I think it's sometimes pretty hard to see what character you're controlling. They do flash, but it's like a very subtle flash, and if you're not paying attention, you can get lost. It happened to me quite a few times. I do like that they put a target on the floor as to where the ball's going to go, so you kind of have some help in that sense, but that doesn't make up for kind of like the sluggish reaction time and whatever else. once you win championship mode, I don't know if you went through and did that, Greg, but you get to play a black and red team. It's the abbreviation is just KIN, and I don't know if that's like a developer team or what, but they're hardcore. I did not beat them, nor was I going to try a second time to beat them. I was happy I just got to them.
There's also there's also a second hidden team you can unlock too, which is called the MJP team.
Okay. I mean, I was having a hard enough time with that team. I can't imagine hitting that one.
I don't blame you. They're hard.
Back to the positive for a bit. I found women's beach volleyball to be actually lots of fun. So you're playing with just 2 players as opposed to 6 that you have in indoor. So it makes gameplay a little easier. You can see the targets a little easier. You can kind of move around a little easier. You don't have to worry about like, who am I controlling? Because there's only 2 of you. Like, you're going to be controlling one of the 2. Like, you just don't get lost as much. The gameplay to me was very similar to like it was indoors. I just felt like it was a little easier because there was more room and you could see a lot more of what you're doing. Yeah, I mean, other than that, my criticisms really come down to like the music and the graphics.
Yep.
And I will save those for when we decide we're going to go to that section. But yeah, I mean, overall, I mean, it's a volleyball game. If you like volleyball, I'm sure you could find lots that you might like here because, like, it seems like a legit volleyball game, like that it follows the rules and, it has your different serves. Like, you can use the different face buttons to do different serves, which I thought was pretty nice. Especially since someone like me, I like to do the overhand, kind of serve. I've never been a underhand serve guy. For some reason, when I always do that, it's just like when I try to kick a field goal, it goes either way left or way right. So it doesn't work. But yeah, I mean, this game was designed for, a certain kind of person that likes volleyball. That's the best way to put it.
Yep. No, that's a very good summary. A summary that I agree with almost all of that. Like you, I do think the women's side's a bit easier to control because there are only 2 players as opposed to like 5. Like on the indoor side of things.
Yeah.
I do agree with you that the timing of trying to return the ball is tricky and hard to get the hang of. I know what the developers are going for here, because I said before, that whole pass set spike mechanic is so critical to volleyball.
Yeah.
And they're trying to make you think about that. They're trying to make the developers are trying to emulate that because you're trying to make you think the same way players would think, in the sense that you have to think like 2 players ahead to think like, okay, what are we going to do with this ball after like you get it to you, like then you pass it over to you. But
yeah.
so you always got to be like thinking about that ahead of time. But that's hard to emulate. It's hard to emulate well like a video game. I think Extreme Beach Volleyball was able to pull it off because it's a newer game and because the controls of that game are a little bit more tighter and you have more reaction time compared to this game.
Right.
Which I don't know, maybe it was just programming limits. I kind of felt like, considering the fact this game was developed by a very experienced company in terms of Tosei, it kind of felt like this game kind of pushed the system a little bit. And it's like a volleyball game should not really be pushing Super NES this hard because it's just a volleyball game. It's like, yes, there are physics and whatnot to consider, and they're considering this, but it's like the gameplay on both the women's and the men's side just felt sluggish to me because the gameplay was just the overall gameplay was just slow. It's like even trying to spike a ball, that ball should go screaming over the net.
Yeah.
And those spikes are the same speed as all the other balls. Setting the ball, passing the ball, spiking the ball, it's all the same speed. It's like that's not like real volleyball. The physics themselves are okay, but it's like the volleyball mechanics what makes this to be like a real quality of life volleyball game is not here. Somebody who's a casual player, definitely could have some fun with this. Like Joe said, and I'm not criticizing you one bit or anything about that because I think, like I said, casual players are fine. But if you know the sport or played the game before in the past, like I have, then these deficits really hit you in the face because it's like it definitely feels off and sluggish. So,
and I have a theory. I think because of the fact Tosei does have such a amazing resume, I really think this game was either A, rushed, or B, they didn't put their experienced programmers on it. Which is probably true, yeah. And only say that because, as we've touched on with the gameplay and whatever else, and then we'll touch on this in a bit, but like, it really reflects, in my opinion, with the music and the graphics. It just doesn't look like an experienced team that put the game together, or they just didn't have enough time. It could be a combination of those two things, but I really feel like the A team of Tosei that we know that has pumped out like fantastic game after fantastic game just did not technically have a hand here.
And to be fair, many sports games are not done by the teams of companies,
right?
Unless it's like a really big franchise like Madden or NBA or something like that. So I like many sports games feel like they're done by the B side, which to be fair is fine for many sports games. But it's like I think in this game, you're right. For whatever reason, the pieces just don't come together.
Yeah.
So and it's especially jarring, as Joe alluded to, with the graphics and music, which we'll get into here, I guess. Let me just say real quick here, Joe, I'll let you talk about this in length, but let me just say to start off things, because I'm curious if you had the same reaction I did. I actually had to look at a video of this game to find out. When I first played this game, I thought my emulator was working correctly because the graphics are kind of blurrish. There's actually tearing and like blurring on the screen as you play the game. I'm going like, what the hell is this? Because it's like it should not be present in a video game, especially the 16-bit generation.
Yeah. And
so I looked at a video too online. And I'm like, this is actually how the game plays.
Yep.
And I'm going like, what the hell happened here? But it's not game breaking, but it is distracting for sure.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess I'll start off with like the music because there's barely any there.
It's not great music. No, it's very common, like elevator suite, like very like typical low grade Super NES music.
Yeah.
The sound effects are also like very lacking as well.
Yeah, and it's short. It only shows up like when there's like scoring points or like you're winning back a serve for your team or like there's like a hard fought play, like, and it's just like little tidbits. So it's like almost non-existent. It might as well not even be there. The biggest thing for me was the graphics of the players in the arenas. So, I mean, the environments are okay. They're represented pretty well as far as the gyms and the beaches and the environments around them that you can see. Those are all fine. Even the referee and his little red flag looks okay. But the players that you interact with just look, as Greg said, blurry and muddy. I called them faceless players. Like, overall, like, they're a good sized sprite. I can't
But they're
complain.
not detailed. They're very blurry.
Correct.
Yeah, they're very blurry and faded looking. So
Yeah, so it's like the detail, the sprite size is just right, but the detail is just not there. And it's really the multicolor uniforms is the only way you can figure out what's going on.
It's even worse the women's side, because the women's side they're all the same color pretty much.
Yeah. So they're all the same like skin color. They all have like the same hair color. It's, if they even have hair, but like it's just like the women are. I literally put that in my notes. The women are literally clones, and it's like just the tiniest of details added in would have made a huge difference.
Right.
But yeah, I go back to what I said. I think this was a rush job, or they didn't have a choice. Like they had a deadline; it had to be released, and this is what we got. It's disappointing because I really feel like there is a good game here. We just unfortunately can't see it, and unfortunately, we really can't play it. We get a glimpse of it with the beach volleyball. We see how good the mechanics are. We see how well it can be played. But again, like you had stated, the ball's still slow and sluggish. Your character still kind of moves slow and sluggish. And then there's still that aspect of there's no detail. They're just smudges moving around on the screen. Give this game like another year of development, not even, probably 3 months. And I think that this would have been a different product and we'd be talking about at least a mediocre game, rather than kind of the disappointment that we clearly both had here.
Yeah. So I will say, though, I do like the fact that there is a radar given to you in the top corner of the screen, like the players. That's nice. So I will give that on positive mark. But the biggest issue I had in this game, besides the blurring effect of the graphics, is the actual camera angles used. Because it's like the camera angles in this game just suck. Just period. They're horrible. It's like the gameplay shown to you on a side view perspective, where it's like one team's on one side, the other team's on the other side, and the camera moves back and forth between the sides. The ball gets hit back and forth. That's fine.
Yeah.
It's like Kick at the Beach did that. A lot of other like volleyball games have done that perspective. That's fine. Like I'm okay with that. The problem is the camera angle is so zoomed in that you really can't see anything beyond the immediate area, like where the ball is taking place in, and like a place in. So you can't really see, like, the radar, as nice as it is, the radar becomes critical because oftentimes a teammate you may want to hit the ball to, you can't see them on the screen. And you kind of have to rely upon the radar to try to know where they are, that kind of stuff. It's like I don't know why they felt the need to zoom in on the court so closely. It's like just if the camera angle was backed up a little bit, just so it gave you like a more wider perspective of the court. Like you don't like you don't need to see the whole court, the court at once. That's fine. But it's like instead of giving us like a quarter view of the court, give us like a half view of the court, because I think that wider perspective would have both helped the graphical issue, because you wouldn't be zoomed in as close on the featureless players to see how how ugly they were. But it also would have helped some of the blurry issues and the slowness issues about the camera going back and forth trying to keep up with the gameplay. Yeah. There's also the fact that there is background objects, there is background here. There is like a wall with like people watching it and like chairs or whatever on top of the court, but you almost never see it because the camera zoomed in like on the court so much. It's like, what's the point of having it there? Like you can't see it. It's like if you're going to have zoomed in this much, take out the background stuff because nobody's going to see it in the first place.
Yeah.
There's just very curious design decisions with how this game was made and presented that I just don't get. So it's like I said before, these are not fatal errors. The game is still playable if you enjoy volleyball and if you are willing to give it the time and attention the game deserves. But honestly, there are better volleyball games out there. The Extreme Beach volleyball games still hold up very well today, I think. You don't want all the jiggle physics that come with that. I honestly think Kings of the Beach for the NES is still a better volleyball game than this is, despite it being like an older title. It's a competent enough volleyball game. It's fine. I do enjoy like we were saying, the game does have positives. There's a lot of there's a lot of play modes, having both like indoors and outdoors, like indoors and outdoor volleyballs, like lots of, there's some playing depth because of all the rounds and matches and cups you can go through, and whatnot. The whole presentation and package of the game itself is solid, but the actual how does the game play and look is where everything like falls flat in space, unfortunately. And it's a shame because I agree with Joe. It's like I think this game could have definitely have been better with either like more time or more experienced programmers, or I really don't know what happened here. Obviously this is not a major effort by Tosei. I think you're right in saying that B-tier programmers probably to work on it, but it's like there's still no excuse for a game this ugly and this sluggish and this slow looking, unfortunately. Yeah. But it's a shame because I said the actual gameplay modes and options are great, but unless you actually, unless you actually like volleyball and you're willing to, be patient with it, or you have somebody to play the game with, obviously another human player always things up a notch, but unless those things apply to you, then there are definitely much better volleyball games out there in the market, especially for the casual players. It's like, even me, somebody who's played the game in real life and has played a lot of volleyball games, it's like, it's meh, it's fine, but it's nothing, nothing I'm gonna. Nothing unfortunate that I'm going to go back to because of all these issues, which makes me want to play another Super NES volleyball game because I know there's I know there's got to be other better volleyball games out there than this is. Yeah. But just kind of like kind of disappointing, actually. I was hoping for a pretty solid, competent volleyball game going into it, and the opening, like I said, the opening presentation, the game engine and the game options and everything is solid. Which gave me a very good feeling going into the game, and a game like the next start playing, it's like it all goes out the window. So, but yeah. I mean, not the worst volleyball game I played, but it's certainly not a great one like many means of the imagination for sure. I don't know what else to say about this game. Now that I've bashed upon it that much. Joe, do you have anything else you want to add upon or say?
I mean, I've said my piece.
Not a surprise. This game did not get any attention. The attention when it came out. I was only able to find 2 reviews of this game, and both those reviews are more contemporary reviews. So, but the overall rating. I have here the average. Let me see if I can find out what the actual review scores themselves were. Okay, all right. Okay. Sorry, I take it back. I apologize. I got this game confused with another game. These two reviews were contemporary reviews of the game when it came out. Super Play reviewed the game February of 1993, and they gave 76 out of 100, which is fair. Nintendo Power, however, reviewed the game in November of that year, and when people who say Nintendo Power always gives puffed up scores to games, take a look at this score because they gave this game what I feel is a very accurate 2.8 out of 5.
Okay.
So it's like okay, they were not gentle on that. Gentle on this game. So, so combined together, that 66% percent game rating, which feels right to me. So, I'd say it's probably like accurate as far as the, as far as the overall ranking, ranking of the game goes. So, but anyway, so there are some codes. I mentioned before how there are two secret teams, the Kin team and the MGP team. There are codes you can use to access those teams if the teams want to go right to them. There's also a way to access the debug menu, which gives you a whole bunch of fun options to play around with. So, that may increase your enjoyment of this game. Some by doing that.
Maybe.
But, considering this, so this game is fairly uncommon on eBay. You can find it. But because it's not a great game, prices of this game are pretty cheap. So if you're a collector or you are a volleyball fan who does enjoy this game, you can pick up a copy of this game pretty cheaply. 41 copies of this game are listed on eBay as we do research. 5 copies of the game have recently sold. Carling prices. These prices go shipping for North America copies only. Pretty affordable game for card only. They sold anywhere from $10 to $15.
Okay.
So CIB was not much more expensive. That range anywhere from $30 to $30. Even steel copies game sold recently for pretty affordable, like $130. Pretty cheap game to add to your collection. If you want to, for sure.
I was going to say, as someone who plays their games, I think I would be disappointed if I paid more than $5 for this game. But, as knowing how some people collect in-box and sealed product and whatnot, those prices aren't that bad at all. So I wouldn't fault anyone for picking them up for that price.
No, I think they're reasonable. So, anyway, so that's digging Spike Volleyball. So the sports games that we picked to cover in this stretch of end of the year podcast episodes are not the best in the world, but I still had some fun playing them at least. So there wasn't total loss. But anyway, speaking about end of the year, we have coming up our annual end of the year special, which will be our next episode of the podcast, episode 249, and then I think we can announce now what we're doing for episode 250, which is a milestone episode. Joe and I decided that there's probably I don't remember if the idea was originally ours or if we got the idea from somebody else, but we decided that it would be a good idea to cover. There are a bunch of bad games in the system that we don't feel are good enough or have interesting enough backstories or lore or whatever to justify doing a full episode on. So Joe and I are going to take a bunch of those bad games, as decided upon by various sites and people's opinions, and just kind of cram a bunch of them in one episode, and just be like, okay, this is X game. This is your 5 minutes of fame.
Right.
Then this is all you're getting. So we can cover off a whole bunch of bad games in the episode and have some fun ripping on them in the process, hopefully. So that episode should be out sometime in January 2025. So look forward to it. So we will keep quiet the list of games that we're going to cover, partly because we still need to finalize the list and come down with like one or two a finalized list. But there will be like kids games on here. There will be like bad arcade ports, and there will be there will definitely be some terrible crap movie, TV show, shovelware crap that you expect to see on a system this time period. But so pretty good mix of the games being covered. I think that we could make an episode, for example, entirely dedicated just like bad platformers, for example. But we wanted to be a little bit more diverse with the games we cover this episode than just that, to make it more interesting. So, add some other games, for example, that, like I said, are probably bad, but I think we have enough meat to be able to cover those games in more more detail, flesh them out like a full episode. I will say one game right now that I want to cover next year, because I think that while it's a bad game, I think the game itself is interesting enough to cover more in depth. I definitely want to cover like Lesser the Unlikely next year as well.
Yeah.
Because it's I played the game before in the past. It's a very interesting game. It's flawed in many ways, but it definitely is a very interesting. It definitely is a very unique and interesting game to talk about.
Yeah.
So it was. That game was on our initial draft list, and I decided this case, and I'm like, nah, you don't deserve to be here. Yeah. You're better than this crap. Yeah. So I know you are crap, but you're not grade A crap. Yeah. So but anyway, yeah. So that's what we're doing for our special 250 episodes. So stay tuned for the next 2 episodes, and then Joe and I over the holidays will hammer out the games that we want to cover for 2025, and then we're back to you sometime in January with the first of the new the first new games. So stay tuned for that. So I think that wraps everything up. If you have any questions, feedback, comments, feel free to leave on our Facebook page, or you can also send me an email directly to the SNES podcast at yahoo.com. Joe, where can they reach you at?
You can find me on everywhere. You can find me on Twitter at JOESUX30. I have a very public Facebook, which, again, as I say every episode, not family friendly. I also do the Radical Retro Roundup, which I always plug on here, but it's not family friendly, so just be warned. George and I actually just recorded and released an episode on the Need for Speed. Road and Track presents the Need for Speed, which was fun going back to the origins of that franchise and then looking at where it's gone now. So that was fun. Outside of that, I have a Discord as well for the Radical Retro Roundup, but let's go see the podcast. Okay. There's a link in there.
Okay. Sounds good. So, as always, Joe, thanks for being here. And thanks for everybody out there for listening. Stay safe, everybody. Be well. Hope your December goes well. Goes well and stay safe. Happy holidays. We'll catch you again next time. Later, all.
Bye. Merry Christmas. Happy Hanukkah. Happy Kwanzaa.
Nintendo controls 80% of the video market. But no matter how you play the game, or which game you play, things definitely have come a long way since Pac-Man.
Now you're playing with power. Super power.